like Dirk said, I want to turn this into a sort of discussion around being a performance consultant. And my definition of performance consultant is heavily talent focused. The work I do, though, kind of spans the gamut, and I'll throw in some examples that I do. And in our prep, we were in thinking that probably given the trends in the world today, we'll talk a bit about AI and that being one sort of good example of a disruptive change. By the second half of this, we're going to be talking about some real scenarios. So I would actually encourage you to think about, all the different kind of things you're doing today or have done, if you want to draw from a historic example. I think it's maybe worth starting with a broad perspective on this. We're really working in a different era. And I think that's an important thing for us to consider, that something can go from idea to action to scale.
A lot of people see the more you use critical thinking, and this is specifically to the AI. So it's not just your own blind spots, it has blind spots too. So the critical thinking questions, which are increasingly some of the tools that are now being built to be able to challenge your own assumptions.
I'm thinking about this notion of algorithmic humility. This is to your point, Rachel, where there's no way that one human being can really know all the answers, particularly when we have a gateway into the world's knowledge base, if you will. And so I think part of this too is I absolutely agree with the EQ comment and the critical thinking component. You're going to see the leadership development programs given AI are really focusing on those pieces because the computer cannot today inspire, engage, enroll, provide clarity, all that kind of stuff. The machine is smart and it's doing amazing things, but you can't abdicate your critical thinking to a machine, nor should you ever give your voice to a person or a machine. That's my point. But
I think there's a couple things that are coming in my head. And after the first core capability, like weak signals and understanding and actually looking for weak signals is one way to kind of challenge your paradigm. So we talk a lot about that, where it's, the strong signals are the strong signals. You see something coming and it's pretty apparent. But then if you look beyond that and actually look outside your industry and some of the things that you were saying, Aaron, about like look beyond it, what consumers are doing and what's happening with education and whatever, all of a sudden these different signals that you're not even thinking of because you're working in your own little scope all of a sudden come true. So I think that's one thing. I also am wondering, like, what are the implications of the implications? So if you kind of like take the surface level of, okay, I'm going to reframe my choice. What are my, choices, the internal influencers? Okay, well, there's the first level.
What are the cascading implications of those choices? And that actually perfectly brings the point that, we talk about in the book in terms of how to think about risk. But if you just cut to what is the best way to think about risk, as is illustrated here, think about it throughout the decision-making process. Put it up front, as we said in turn, and this kind of pulls together the other two. How are you scanning risks on the front of the horizon, those emerging blind spots? Then how are you actually thinking about risk among choices? And then once you've made your choice, of course, then you're in execution mode. Then it's time to think about risk in what I think is sort of the traditional way, because often, and then I think it's sort of the worst case to be about is, let's just think about risk as a problem to be avoided at the end. But that's frankly too late. Much better when you're thinking about risk throughout the whole process. I used it in a practical way before going to a full day workshop where we didn't bring this worksheet in. We could have, but but I came in better prepared to ask them some of these questions because I had looked at them and, just to say, here are the GPT questions that I put in. I actually put this in all at once. This worked for me. I was able to put these in and then attach the blank worksheet that I just had on the previous page, and it actually filled it out for me.
I think this is brilliant. And one of the things that I have to do a call out is there's so many people that learning leaders, L&D leaders I've been talking to who are starting to report back that L&D role might change to be more of a consultant that could use this worksheet. We don't know what our roles, as Aaron said at the beginning, which roles is L&D going to be less L&D instructional designers or more? But this is an opportunity for us to practice in a safe environment and be prepared. So anyways, I just want to, there is some relevance, like a what's in it for me, for each person on this call, is this might be where our roles are moving to.